Hi, and welcome back, everyone. It's Jennifer Britton. Thanks for joining us for one of our summer 2025 hot topics in group and team coaching calls. I'm looking forward to having a brief conversation with you today on the topic of group coaching. And we are going to be looking at facilitation in focus. So, with today's topic, we're going to be diving into the hot topic of facilitation. We're going to be linking into engagement, connection, and trust, as well as setting up our calls for the next few weeks. June 24th is a mid-year check-in, followed by the 8th of July, where we're going to be looking at AI and marketing. We're then going to follow on the 22nd of July with creativity. We're going to look at August 5th at retreats. And in August 19th, we're going to be looking at gearing up for fall. So this is our agenda. Good to see you here, Ivana. Welcome back. Excited to be taking these forward to our summer. And we will get into that bi-weekly rhythm of looking at what our focus is. So, facilitation, I think it really ties in nicely to the launch of our second season. We've just launched that with episode 27, engagement, bringing all voices into the room. And so, anything you want to say about this season of the Coaching Many podcast, or even a wrap up of season one, because that just happened a few weeks ago as well.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. So it's been a great journey to be with you on this, on this Coaching Many podcast and just bringing fresh ideas, regarding things that oftentimes many of our coaches know, but really kind of reinforcing topics, themes like engagement, like the competencies, that type of stuff, but really bringing that fresh perspective, especially with the climate that we are living and operating and working in today. Like, the world is in chaos. Well, not chaos, but there's a lot of things going on, wars, economic situations, elections, all this stuff. And so I think it's a really great time to highlight, spotlight topics that really can support our leaders, our coaches in keeping those conversations going, effective, um, for their leaders, for the people that they support. So it's been a great journey with you.
Phenomenal. And I'm looking forward to our season two. We've got
Yeah.
some really exciting episodes coming up. We have the habits of group and team coaches coming up. We just recorded today, Be Do Have, which I think is a really key framework. So we also want to hear from you. We will be changing a bit of the format for some of our episodes in season two. We actually want to sit down and do interviews with other, professionals in this space, but we do want to hear from you. What would you like to notice? I know many of you have told me that you really like this format because you do a lot of driving and you can just listen in. So phenomenal. We know that it is another way to get the word out. And like our community calls, many of you are watching these asynchronously as well. So we're going to continue them, whether we have a lot of people with us or not. We are also going to be zooming back into some demo work just to, again, bring to life what group and coaching teams looks like. So today's topic is really another support. Our company here at Potentials Realized and under the Group Coaching Essentials banner is really to support your ongoing learning, development, and growth as a group and team coach. And so it's not always a straight line. And I really want to zoom into this graphic because what I'm hearing in the ecosystem of coach training these days is, oh, I've already done a training. Great, that's your initial training, but there is always going to be more need. And so, as you take the work out into the world, as you engage with your clients, you're going to be learning and you're going to be hearing, ooh, I need to start learning about this or that. In fact, our advanced pathway, which includes the neuroscience, learning and experiential approaches course, the presence course, which is our superpowers, and also looking at the hybrid work styles, really grew out of client-based work. What else did coaches need in order to masterfully grow and evolve as a group and team coach? And so that piece around going out and doing the work, having the conversations is really critical. It's going to inform what additional training you want to undertake, and know whether you are a credentialed ACC, PCC, MCC, or even under the ACTC route, the Advanced Credential and Team Coaching, you're going to need to keep doing ongoing development, a minimum of 20 to 30 to 40 hours every 3 years. So we hope that you will consider us as part of that CCE journey. Another key piece of the ongoing learning is supervision, right? And supervision really being the space where you can bring your work, where you can think about what you need to do, where you can think about what is, happening in the complexity of the work itself. A lot of people ask me, do you do supervision? Absolutely. We're going to have supervision groups starting up again in the fall. And if there is enough demand, another one in July. Typically, supervision groups meet once a month for 90 minutes. The group in September will begin the second Tuesday of September, and that will be a 1 to 2:30 p.m. group meeting second Tuesday of every month. Supervision is not only a nice to have for team and group coaches, it's a requirement. And so just invite you to think about, how do you create the space and time to really be looking at what is happening. I know with the many supervision groups that I've led and co-led with the group members, it is just a very special place to be looking at our work. And while it is a requirement for the ACTC, it is an ongoing good practice. Well, practice is part of this equation, and we really have embedded in our advanced coursework more practice and practicum, and that leads to more learning in CCE. So with that, I'm going to dive in. Here's what we have upcoming. We've got a mentor coaching group starting next week. As I mentioned, we've got the supervision group that'll meet again in July, second Tuesday. We've got an in-person training, which is going to be the Facilitation Skills Intensive. And I'm looking forward to bringing people here to this office space to be whipping out the Post-it notes, to be talking about facilitation, and more importantly, doing the facilitation. So in this 2-day program, we actually cover 24 facilitated exercises. I launched this program back in 2012 and used to run it 3, 4, even 6 times a year in person. And now what's interesting, after I sent out this notice of the July 8th and 9th, 2025 program here in Muskoka, Canada, people emailed me saying, are you going to be doing something virtually? And yes, we will. So you'll notice that I am offering now, it's going to go under the Conversation Sparker umbrella. There will be Facilitation Level 1, which will be a 6-week program followed by Facilitation Level 2. And that is going to be bringing what we do with those 24 facilitated techniques, putting it into another 12 weeks of virtual learning. So if you're interested, set up a call. Today's call really is about facilitation, and I hope that at the end of this, you realize why it is so important. This is not a nice to have, this is a need to have conversation space. Now, group coaching essentials will be back as well. Do you want to say anything about the summer offering of GCE, Ivana?
Yeah, we kick off on July 11th, 10:15 to 11:45 Eastern, and 5 weeks straight. So you'll wrap up by August the 8th. And it really is, it's an essentials program. So we cover the foundations and best practices around what group coaching is, isn't. We also explore design best practices, how to really kind of support that, bringing that coaching approach, but still strong in facilitation. Because even in group coaching, there is facilitation. There's a space of facilitation in that conversation. Then we move into business development or marketing, even as an internal coach, business leaders. What does that look like? And then I think one of my favorite weeks and yours is the tools. How do some of the favorite tools that we use, values, vision, how does that look like in a group coaching context, both virtually and in person? Then we wrap up with tricky issues and best practices. If you take nothing else from this program, but these 8 things, you've hit a home run, as I say, in week 5. So good stuff. Very good foundational, I'm going to say. And that's why we have the pathway that allows you, if you choose, to go forward in terms of practice, which is the practicum program.
Love it. And it is about practice, which is the heart of today's conversation. So we're going to dive into
Absolutely.
facilitation. And, whether you think about facilitation here on the screen or in our old school, markers and post-it notes, it is a dynamic, safe space for conversation.
Mhm.
So really want to really zoom us in. Here's the thing. Facilitation comes from the Latin word facilis, to make things easy. And I had to pull out my old easy button, which I actually
I love
used
it.
to take to team coaching engagements for a long, 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 long time. I don't know where that easy button has gone now, but I just think it's such a great visual reminder that our work as facilitators is to make it easy for people to have the conversations in the moment. And later this year, October, and I'm sharing this now because there's only last week there were only 15 spots left for this conference. If you are free, beginning of October, October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, I believe, or 2nd and 3rd, ICF Halifax or ICF Atlantic is going to be hosting their first in-person conference.
Mm,
After 7 years, they're back, and I am blessed to be the keynote for the conference. So I'm actually delivering two sessions. I'm doing their interactive keynote, where we're going to be looking at the conversations that matter. I'm also going to be doing a special 90-minute workshop. So roll up your sleeves. You really like get into the messiness of work with group and team coaching on the second day. So I
beautiful.
hope that you will join us. And I say that this is a skill set that is so critical, right? It's not just about having the discussion, it's about creating an experience. And to listen in, right? We're talking facilitation today, but I do want to draw our attention to some of the experiential podcast episodes that have recently happened. And I can get you to look those up, Ivana, because I will give the wrong numbers, but they're in the 20s. We've done a couple, one around the experiential process and review, and two, there was also another one that we recently did around experience design. This is critical. The differentiator in the world of coaching in the landscape of AI is about creating powerful experiences. Whether you are online or offline, the ability to create a sense of connectivity, of focus, of relationship is going to be essential.
Mm.
So, what episodes can people listen into to get more on the experiential piece?
Sure. So we've got episode 19 where we explore the experiential process in focus in the coaching many context.
Mhm.
And then we also have episode 23 that we really look at the experiential tools to expand conversation, perspectives, and awareness.
Love it. So this is not a nice to have. And we still get the question, which is why yesterday I did a LinkedIn article on group coaching, team coaching, and facilitation skills, because
Mm.
really it is about discerning the right approach for the different conversations that you're having. The world we live in is a world of blends, although many things may feel very polar. In fact, in our work, it's about integration. It's about being able to sort of move from one domain to the other. So, I actually wanted to activate because I'm doing so much work these days with AI and looking at how AI is really shaping our work, not only our work as coaches, but our work with clients. I was sharing with Ivana, I had a meeting earlier today with a head of an organization that I'm doing some work with, a 3-day team coaching engagement with next week. And we're actually going to be integrating AI into the work. That's where we're at in the business world. This is not something that's like, oh, maybe I'll use it. People, profit running companies are integrating this into their everyday work. And that's why a few months ago, I started offering the AI empowered coach and solopreneur programming to give you a chance to start getting your feet wet in your business. Now, against the backdrop of AI, that means we need to create and design these powerful experiences, and facilitation is going to matter even more. So to put money where my mouth is, right? I went to not Chat GPT to create this slide, but this is a Gamma slide where I said to Gamma, free account, create me a slide on why facilitation skills matter in a world of complex change. Within 15 seconds, this is what it had spat out, including the design of the slide. I didn't have to do anything. I just had to prompt it. So here's what Gamma says, even though it attributes it to me. And we do want to be very careful because, as we know, authors like myself have fed the machines. Okay, so facilitation, according to Gamma, has become an essential leadership competency in today's rapidly evolving workspace. Sounds a little bit like me, right? The whole body of work, reconnecting workspaces, about evolving workspaces. The World Economic Forum, which we talked about a few weeks ago on our podcast, now lists critical thinking among the top skills employers seek. With 85 million jobs predicted to be displaced by 2025, facilitation skills remain distinctly human qualities that machines cannot replace. So there's the machine talking about, why facilitation matters, why it matters in a world of change. Connectivity is critical. And as coaches, our methodology is still very much in a one-on-one space. Masterful group and team coaches are masterful facilitators. And as I've said for the last 18 years, if you sit down with the competency base of IAF, which is the International Association of Facilitators, put it beside ICF, International Coach Federation, you're going to see a lot of cross pollination. I addressed this way back in effective group coaching. So if you have that book, pull it out. You've got a whole chapter on this topic. If you have From One to Many, Best Practices for Group and Team Coaching, pull that out. I dive deeply into it. So today is really to think about how do we create? And here is where we know that trust lives. And this is a graphic that you're going to see in an article that will come up in about 6 months at Choice Magazine, where I share what is now the Conversation Sparker framework to help us think about how are we building trust, because at the heart of any good conversation is trust. So we need to create a pause that is allowing a space for everyone to be present: coach, client, facilitator, leader, team members. We need to slow it down. We need to get clear on what matters most. What matters most today in this moment, not yesterday, not 3 months ago, not 3 months from now, in the now. What do we do to create, and how do we explore what's possible together from the current state? This is where you may be bringing in things like AI agents into the discussion because they may be partners in your business. And finally, we want to make sure that we are leaving with that clarity around accountability so that we can activate. We can think about how we're going to move forward with shared action. My premise in the upcoming work of coaching and change is all about trust is built when we allow the space for these four components to take place. So just notice this is critical. Notice as well that I've actually used AI to create this. This slide wasn't created with Gamma. This slide was actually created with ChatGPT and a couple of prompts. I created the content, it did the graphics for me. So with that backdrop, regardless, we need to have conversations. And I think we get ourselves wrapped up into, well, which one do we do? Do we do coaching? Do we train? Do we do facilitation? I would say let's get out of that quagmired argument because it can become very argumentative. And I say this having done keynotes for more than 15 years now with groups of facilitators, trainers, and coaches. Let's not think about how different we are. Let's zoom into what are the similar skill sets that we need to lead from. So, Ivana, I'm going to ask you, you work a lot with groups. What are your top one or two skills that you lean into when you're with a group? Maybe it's something you see on the screen, which we'll go through one by one, but maybe it's something different. What's a key skill you activate?
The first thing that popped in mind was curiosity. I just bring curiosity, and I think curiosity, when I look at what's here, is it often shows up through powerful questions and through just listening and my presence of what's in the space. So even the somatic, the embodiment, the body language. So that's the first thing that came to mind right away.
Beautiful. And the
Yeah.
somatic is such an important layer, right? It's like all of that knowing, all of that wisdom. And so we're going to go through this. And again, your process, your style may be a bit different than someone else's as well. So you'll want to layer this with the superpowers. What is your natural lead from? And I'm going to challenge you because the superpowers are not just about developing one, it's about developing them all.
Mhm.
Now, underpinning that, all of us need to grow in these areas. So it's powerful questions, right? Powerful questions spark insights and new perspectives. Even if we aren't a Spiral Lighthouse coach, how can we be using questions, hopefully starting with what, to help people really start connecting the dots differently or start unlayering collapsed issues? It is about developing new perspectives so that we can take new action to develop new habits to have different results. And that's a lead through to an upcoming Coaching Many podcast episode that we'll do. So stay tuned. In one of our upcoming episodes in season 2, you'll find the Be Do Have episode, which I think is a really important episode to listen to as you think about questions. Where are your questions directing people? Because as much as our questions are curious, the way we ask a question is going to create a frame around it. So I might be asking, what does that look like? Versus what feelings emerge for you? It's a very different conversation. And a great facilitator, and I use that term throughout today's call because great group and team coaches are also great facilitators. We need to always balance the process and the framework with the flexibility. I think this is something that a lot of group coaches and team coaches find as a challenge. As they move through our practicum programs, they get a little confused. Well, what does that mean? How do I show up holding a structure, but also being able to adapt with it? Third area for you to think about is group dynamics. What is the life cycle of the group? What's important for the group? Where are they? Are they in storming? And if so, is it important to have that conversation rather than to sweep it under the rug? We want to make sure that we're also looking at group process. So helping the group notice, where are they? Even if we had this little roadmap, right? Are we at 1? Are we at 3? Are we at 7? Where are we in the process of our work together? Number 5, which is one of my passions. Not all of you would say it is for yourself, but it's really about utilizing experiential methods for engaging conversations. It is about helping people through the what, the so what, and the now what. It's helping people learn and progress. It's also about activating creative techniques, and that's what we're known for, right? Even in the most serious of conversations, we need to have creative approaches. I would argue in today's complexity, we can't just ask a question. A question alone is not going to give us the answers that we need. We need techniques and approaches that are going to help us bridge, help us see things differently, help us connect what might have previously been unconnected. And the final piece that's a bit of an interesting one for people to sit in is neutrality. As a facilitator, as a coach, how are you showing up? Are you neutral? Are you not? Can you only be neutral? And that's a really important inquiry to think about right now. There's an ethical answer to this. There's also a moral answer to this as well. So I would invite you to think about neutrality. As a group coach, we want to make sure all the voices are in the room, even those that are not the norm or those that are not represented. That is probably an even more important voice to bring into the room. So neutrality, how are you using neutrality as well and activating that? So I want to give everyone just a moment. I'm going to make this smaller again so that we can see it. As you think about these 7 skills, powerful questions, balancing process with flexibility, group dynamics and group process, designing experiential processes, activating creative techniques and neutrality, which is your strength? What are you good at right now? I want you to take 20 seconds, write it out, And think about how you might amplify that, how you might activate that even more. What could you do? And second, I want you to pick a different skill. What is the one on this list that right in this moment is the least developed or the least comfortable for you? Pick another one, write that out, and think about how you might start growing your experience and growing your muscles and growing your habits in that area. Again, I'm going to be quiet for about 30, 45 seconds. Notice what is not comfortable for you and where you might choose to grow a little bit more. So, Ivana, you have the pleasure of being here. Anything that you want to share about what you noticed?
Sure. What I noticed is my growth edge is around the group process. And what I mean by that is I realize that I actually wrote it down. It's like, where are we in the process of our work together? And I don't know if being completely vulnerable in this, I don't know if I name that as explicitly as I can and would like to. And I don't even know what that looks like, sounds like. So I was actually going to say, Jen, can you talk a bit more about that? And
Hmm.
like, if you don't mind, because to me, like, that's the one that goes, I think I am, but maybe I'm not. But what
Yeah.
is it? So there's gray on that one for me.
I love that. And there's gray and there's connection too, right? Because, like, how different is group process from group dynamics? And I think depending on who you speak with, group dynamics to me is that Tuckman model. It's where are we in the forming, the storming, the norming. Group process is even more. How are we with trust? What is getting in the way of us really leaning in together? What is cloudy? What is not clear? What do we need to maybe spotlight so that we have a bit more clarity? Conversations within many or with groups and teams sometimes um, aren't great for a variety of reasons. And what comes to mind when I think about group process is the term scaffolding, right? Scaffolding is really important to think about, and it's contingent on learning, how we learn. If we're asking people to divulge something vulnerable before they're ready, we're actually eroding trust and we're shutting them down. So, understanding scaffolding in design, and that's a pretty strong word, design, but wait, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
coach. I'm supposed to just ask questions. Yes, and where are your questions taking people? If I start a conversation with a team that's going through rocky times and say, hey, welcome back, what's taboo? What are you not talking about? I've probably just shut the whole group down right off the bat. We need to warm up. People need to feel safe before they divulge. And so I want
Mm-hmm.
people to really be thinking about group process. What is the scaffold? Where do we need to have been, or where are we now so that we can move forward? And I'll use that notion of a staircase because it's additive. It builds, right?
Yeah.
We live in a world right now where everything seems disconnected. And that's not how we want to create programming. We want to help people create the connection and flow, connection, and oh, this is next. That creates safety in its
Beautiful.
own way. So is
Okay.
that a
So
useful
that's really
analogy?
totally helpful.
Yeah.
Totally helpful. And oftentimes, so I didn't, I was I speak about this even in our programs in the sense of, especially in practicum, it's the word that's coming to me. It's like, have, in my own language, not your language, but have I earned the right to actually, bring this conversation in this context? That's why, like, the power of group coaching is it's not a cookie cutter solution. What works for
Mm-hmm.
one won't work for another. How the group, and now I see the dynamics between group dynamics, but ultimately, even my design will be influenced by the group process.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
what might work for one flow of a dynamic doesn't necessarily guarantee and mean that it will work for another one. I'm even thinking about a practicum session that where one of the coach of the week brought a great topic, but didn't actually introduce some of those foundational elements for trust and safety, just jumped right into the topic, brought
Mm,
right into somatics, and it kind of sent some of the participants spinning because that trust and safety wasn't established in
yeah.
order for that to then unfold. And even if I look back at my own group coaching, that's part of the growth. And I think that's why we can't learn only the theory. We learn by doing
Yeah.
and being present of how the responses are and the feedback piece that you
And we
talk about
learn,
in your work.
yeah, and I'm sort of jumped in because we also learn
No,
by being
it's
part
okay.
of groups, seeing what works and what does not work. And
Yeah,
unfortunately, we're not seeing a lot of great group experiences. We're seeing a lot of people talking at groups, but that is not a group experience.
totally.
So again, all of these skills, it doesn't matter what hat we're wearing, we need to leverage them. And your response may have been a bit different, but I really want to encourage you to think about how do you start building these muscles because all of them are essential. I would just to put another voice in here, like I think my strength is really the activating creative techniques.
Totally.
That is that
Hands
is
down.
yeah, that
Hands
is mine.
down.
And that is what I own. And that is what I'll be continuing to leverage. Some people don't see it, but I'm also going to go back to 13, 14, 17, 20 years ago when people didn't see group coaching either, right? I am always ahead of the curve. And I think 5 years from now, 3 years from now, we're going to realize like, ooh, we really needed to shake it up a little bit in order to get to the result that we needed. The one that I am not as good at, which is an inquiry space for me, is neutrality, because I think there's a very interesting inquiry in this moment where, for many of us, we may have been trained in other modalities. So I was trained as a critical educator. As a critical educator, my role is to affect change. If I am in a completely neutral stance, what am I not providing for the group? And yet, in the same token, if I am there as capital C coach, I am bound by an ethical frame. So this is why I also
Mm.
brought today's focus on coaching facilitation training, because sometimes we can't have the impact we need to have in one modality. And coaching is a part of a wider ecosystem of mentoring, of training, of supervision, of coaching, of development. What is needed in the moment? So,
May I add something, Jen, if
yeah.
you don't mind, just based on that neutrality? A couple things come to mind. One, my CTI training around that self-management, the skill of
Hmm.
self-management, comes to mind. Another thing comes to mind is even in the core competencies around, like, as coaches, as group coaches, as team coaches, like, it's okay that, if we have an intuitive hit, we put it out there. And oftentimes, for my own referencing and for my participants, I'll say, I'm just going to throw some spaghetti on the wall
Hmm.
and we'll see if it sticks. And I actually frame it in a way to say, and I'm doing this because even if it's not to be right, but it's actually to provoke expanded thinking. So I'm not attached to this to kind of help educate. And I'm saying this even for those listening. It's okay that we share our intuitive hits. It's about staying unattached to the fact that our intuitive hit is the right one. And I think that's
Yeah.
part of that dance, that experimentation with
Hmm.
neutrality, you know,
Completely.
and even
Completely.
with somatic work, you can share that intuitive hint, like, somatically I'm feeling this, but again, staying neutral, that it's just because I'm experiencing this, it doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah.
Because there is that, we are in coaching, especially different than therapy, is we are 100% leaning into that relationship. We are co-creating. And
Yeah,
so we have to
co-creating,
stay,
co-designing.
yeah,
Absolutely. And
sorry
that's
to,
really, yeah, and I think very much it is a fluid space. So we've literally just hit the tip of the iceberg. And as I said, so many of you have reached out and said, I can't make it to Canada. Can you do something online? So I want you to head on over to conversationsparker.com/facilitation number one .html, and I'll be taking half of what we do. So our day one of the Facilitation Skills Intensive and redesigning it for the virtual space so that you can get 12 new tools in your toolkit, whether you're coaching or facilitating around team development, difficult conversations, getting to root cause, innovation, change, culture, right? These are not your typical coaching conversations. These are facilitated processes. So I'm going to be kicking off on Mondays on July 7th with the new 6-week program. I'm framing it as a level one, conversations that matter under the Conversation Sparker sort of line. Day two, which we would normally do in the room, will come later in the fall, just to again allow people that percolation time, because the way we learn in the virtual space is different than the way we learn in an intensive. So I hope that you'll check that out and maybe join me virtually this summer to really, if you really want to build your toolkit to have the conversations that matter in the room, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's group, whether it's team, facilitation skills are essential. And as you heard me say, thanks to Gamma AI, it is going to be one of those human skills that's going to be so critical for everyone going forward. This summer and this fall, coaching and change is coming into the landscape. We're going to continue to build on our dice, our cards. I'm doing dockside days up here in beautiful Muskoka, where I'm getting to work on the dock with people around your programming, around your design. So maybe you don't want to join a group program. Maybe you want to do some one-on-one. Think about joining us for that. I think there's a lot on the go, a lot of very exciting things. Most of you are like, I've done this, but I haven't done that, or I'm just starting. So everyone's on a different pathway. This is where we recommend book a time with either Ivana or myself to help you get grounded on what is your next best step. Because we do work with coaches across a multi-decade learning journey. And unlike other schools who are just starting with new group coaches, we work with we work with like seasoned, and we work with the experts in the field, and you all need something a little bit different. So with that, we're back in 2 weeks for our next call. That'll be June the 24th, 12 noon. Hope that you can join us. Any closing insights as we go, Ivana?
I really appreciated those 7 um, elements
Skills.
of those. And I'm just thinking about the superpowers and how the superpowers kind of that balance of those superpowers and how with bringing balance to them, these all get naturally activated. I'm going to say if I can.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's I really connect that because you mentioned superpowers presence, and these are the skills behind activating the presence that we want to have with our groups and teams.
And thank you for making that link, right? Which is spotlighting, another facilitation skill. All right, everyone, we hope that you'll join us in 2 weeks. If you're watching this on YouTube, please leave us a comment. Maybe it's what you're going to focus on, or what is the most important skill that you see in this moment. All right, have a good one. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Be well. Bye.